And hello YouTube, GSmaniamsmart here, and today is a massive day for Guild Wars 2. The spring quarterly update has just gone live, patch notes are out already, and I gotta tell you, I haven't seen these many notes in an update for quite some time. I think they had to use a double post to get all the patch notes in. I literally spent the last 2 hours taking notes on all the important bits of the patch notes because there is so much to go over. There's so many cool new things. And interestingly enough, actually, in the last video I did about the spring quarterly update, I had a lot of speculations and a lot of predictions. And my initial concept for this video was going to be to have like a flashback, black and white, of some of these statements I made and predictions I had based off of dev comments, based off of my own opinions. And you were going to see that a lot of them were actually right, but it turns out that a lot of it was actually true, so it'd probably take up a lot of time. So we're going to be going over all the important bits, all the cool stuff that I thought was game-changing, all the important things that I think you guys would find interesting. There's a lot of stuff we may skip over because it's like minor things and nothing too crucial, but you'll get the general gist of it. That's kind of the purpose of this video. There's just so much to talk about. Tomorrow, I'm going to be making another video on the Q&A dev chat that they're having on Reddit right now. Right now, developers from Guild Wars 2 are talking to some of the people commenting on the Reddit thread. However, I can't squish all of this into one video, so hopefully you'll be here tomorrow as well for that video because lots of information on that topic as well. So lots to go over today. Go ahead and grab some coffee, grab some tea, get your dinner, or play some Guild Wars 2. I'll have some relevant footage on screen. If you want to watch it, you can, but obviously not required because you'll probably see a lot of it in-game yourself anyway. So let's go ahead and get started with the PvE side of the patch notes. And I gotta tell you, this patch was mainly focused on fixing the current game, fixing a lot of the current game's concepts, and improvements to Heart of Thorns specifically. So a lot of this you'll see are quality of life changes, improvements to already current content. So let's go and start with PvE, specifically the Heart of Thorns maps and the Heart of Thorns expansion and the reward system, how they're changing a lot of this stuff. So firstly, in all the Heart of Thorns maps, you are given a 50% increase of experience to all the kills you make on the map. I think this is already huge because, as we know, all the grind for mastery points, it can be a bit annoying, and the fact that they're already increasing experience for all monster kills is already pretty huge. Not only that though, but they're also changing the way you get rewards in the maps. Instead of having to wait for the entire event to finish to get the massive reward, there's actually going to be more cycles to get rewards. You know how usually you have to wait to a certain point a map gets to get the reward? Well, they're going to focus a bit more on individual events, so you get a lot more frequent rewards from each individual event that you complete. There's also not going to be any more diminishing returns from these map meta events, so you can continue to do them over and over, and you won't get any more diminishing returns. For those of you who like to do these meta events over and over, you can now. So more rewards, more currencies also, and we're also getting ascended crafting materials from bosses, better rewards from bosses, lots more rewards from the events, as I said. And just in general, the entire reward system has been restructured so that it's not too heavily focused on party play and team play, but it's also focused a bit on solo play as well to basically satisfy different play styles of party play and solo play. So you can literally go in the map, do a few events, and still get rewarded and not have to stay for too long. With that also said, the choice of getting different pieces of equipment from the different types of armor sets is also available now, which I think is great. So like we said in the previous video, they're making armor sets a lot easier to get and more accessible. This is how they're doing it. They're allowing you to pick which pieces of equipment you want. Some of the cool new rewards are also showing off in this update is more home instance items. One of the things I think is really underappreciated in this game is that we have a home instance, and personally, I fall a victim to this. I don't go to my home instance very much. I don't really have anything in my home instance. I don't know why. I've just never really cared for that much, but there are an increasingly amount of items coming into the game that you can place into your home instance. With this patch, they're adding a ton more of items you can place in your home instance, like the exalted chests and the cargo ship cargo things that you can open up. You can now add those to your home instance and basically loot them every day, which I think is really cool. And it's a nice little reward for those of you who have already a lot of things in your home instance. You can continue to add more things, and I think that's a really neat way to sort of incentivize going to your home a bit more. On that note, adventures have also been improved. Now you'll be able to do adventures a little easier. They'll be open for longer. They won't be blocked off. The Terrir adventures will still be blocked off when the main Terrir event is going on. But, you know, apart from that, they've pretty much tried to keep them open longer, made them easier, and give more experience to completing those adventures as well. So entirely, everything has pretty much gotten a little easier. They've added tons of new events to each map, lots of new mini events throughout the maps. They've changed some of the hero points, made them a lot easier. Some champions have been demoted to veteran. Everything's just generally been made a little bit easier and a little bit more rewarding, so you don't have to spend too much time. A lot of the new events have also been scaled better, and some of the waypoints now have access also. It's easier to access a lot of the waypoints. A lot of them won't be contested anymore. I know that in Verdant Brink there were a lot of waypoints that were contested, and you really didn't have many options to waypoint around the map. Now they've actually changed that, and a lot of the contested waypoints in the different maps are now uncontested, and you can actually use them to waypoint again. And to finish it off, they've added more chests to each map. I think more hidden chests. I think in Dragon Stand, they've I forget what map exactly they added, but I think it might have been Auric Basin. I can't remember. I don't have it in my notes here, but for one map specifically, I think they've doubled the amount of hidden chests. And one thing that we've all always wanted was Dragon Stand to be more explorable. We never really have a chance to explore Dragon Stand because a lot of things are always blocked off. The 15-minute time limit is far too short. Well, the devs have listened to us, and they've increased the 15-minute time limit to 25 minutes, which is a lot better. It's close to half an hour, which is just fine. You can get a lot more map completion done. And apart from that, the entire map is a lot more explorable anyway. They've given opportunities to explore the map a little better. They've opened up some areas that have been blocked previously, and you can get map completion done a little better, and you can also get more pods, noxious pods in various different places. It's just generally been a better experience that they have here by making everything a bit more accessible and a lot easier to get through, and not gating things too much. A lot of the Heart of Thorns stuff is gated always, and they've sort of looked at that and changed the gating, changed the difficulty, changed the time investment, and basically improved that. So a lot of this revolves around that. They've changed a lot of different events. I'm not going to go over all the changes they made because there's a ton of them. If you want more details, you can look at the patch notes. Specific events have been changed. They've changed a lot of encounters and done scalings and all this other stuff that just is far too much to go over in this video. But that's pretty much everything for Heart of Thorns stuff. So let's go ahead and move on to achievements. Now, I had thought they were going to add Heart of Thorns achievements because it only makes sense, like I said in the last video. Well, guess what? They added Heart of Thorns achievements. So now, part of your dailies, your daily achievements will have Heart of Thorns dailies for you to do. Not only that, but they also added jumping puzzle dailies, and mini dungeon dailies, and dungeon dailies. So the dailies list has really been expanded by a huge amount now. Now we're gonna have jumping puzzles in the mix, dungeons, mini dungeons, which a lot of people don't even know about. A lot of the mini dungeons in the game, many people have never even done. I haven't done all the mini dungeons myself even, and I have several friends who don't even know they exist. So I think this is a great way to really allow players to traverse the world and get a full experience of the game for a lot of the hidden things that not many people know about, and also incentivizing for more variety in doing our dailies. Now we have Heart of Thorns stuff, jumping puzzles, mini dungeons, all this cool stuff. And apart from that, one of the coolest things I think they implemented here is giving a gold reward. You now get 2 gold for completing your dailies. Now think about this. How easy have you completed your dailies? I've completed my dailies within 15 minutes one time. That's 2 gold right there easily for barely doing anything. I think this is a great way to give some free gold, to get some free gold, and it really incentivizes players to log on every day to get their 2 gold for not doing much really. I mean, sometimes you'll see Heart of Thorns dailies there that will basically tell you just see a vista or just go, lumber some trees. And doing something simple as that and two other dailies gives you 2 gold, which I think is great. So we will have some more liquid gold in the economy. I'm curious to see if this, along with the other change that I'm not going to mention yet, I'm sure you guys know what it is. I'm wondering if these 2 changes, where we're going to get more liquid gold, will affect the economy. Will prices be higher? I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think, because it's pretty crazy. Now, apart from that, they've also added unique dungeon paths to the achievements. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, there's an achievement that requires you to do 8 unique dungeon paths. And when you complete 8 unique dungeon paths, you get 5 gold and 150 dungeon tokens. Now, apart from that, they've also boosted the token rewards for each dungeon from 40 tokens to 80 tokens. So we're getting double the tokens from each dungeon, and upon completing 8 unique paths, which there's way more than 8 unique paths in the game, so you can change the variety of which paths you do every day, or set up and find which paths are quickest to do and pick your 8. But essentially, if you do 8 dungeon paths, obviously different ones, 5 gold and 150 tokens on top of the 80 times 5 tokens that you're already getting, which I think is, what is that, 400? So you get 550 tokens in total, I think, for doing all 8 dungeons, and then 5 extra gold. And I think you also still get the gold reward for completing the single dungeon, if I'm not wrong. So that's even more gold there. And I told you guys in the last video, I think one of the best things they could do is revert the dungeon change. And guess what we have here now? The reverted dungeon change. I love it. It's amazing. I think this is great. It really gives players a better variety of things to play with, rather than just PvP or rather than just Heart of Thorns, but also bringing dungeons back and not just focusing on fractals that much. So a lot of people really like that change. I really like that change. I'm gonna be running dungeons a lot more now, especially since it's another form of free liquid gold that's being pushed into the economy. But like I said, how will that affect the market? I'm really curious about that. I wonder if things are gonna get pushed higher in price. I wonder if this will affect scribing prices that they've initially tried to reduce. Will this make things go higher? I mean, the more gold everyone has, the higher the prices, right? I mean, I think that's how it works, isn't it? So I think that's pretty much everything for PvE and achievements. So let's go ahead and move on to fractals. They have added lots of fractals, and once again, we predicted that they would be adding some new instabilities, and well, they have. They have not, however, added a new fractal. I thought they were going to add one. It would have been nice if they did, but I think the patch is already great. It would have been an extra luxury to have a new fractal, but obviously the entire patch is basically improving things that are already in the game and not adding new things, really. So I guess it's understandable. But let's go and start off with the legendary backpack. The legendary backpack, the Ad Infinitum, is finally in the game, and you can now complete the last collection to finally craft the legendary backpack. Along with that, they also have new tiers to fractals. You know how they used to have, I forget the names now. I think it was like a novice, fractal novice, I think it was, and then they had like another one, I forget the name of it. Well, they basically broke down the tiers now. Now they have initiate, adept, expert, and master, and basically they've divided this by 25. So from 1 to 25, from 26 to 50, from 50 to 75, from 75 to 100. I think that's how they've broken that up. And this goes directly in correlation with the dailies. Now they've changed the dailies achievements for fractals, and it's pretty interesting how they've done this. I like how they've done this. Essentially, what's going to happen is that when you log into fractals, when you go into fractals, there will be certain islands that are available for the daily achievement, and these islands can be done on different difficulty levels. For example, if you're doing swamp, you could do it at rank 2, or you could do it rank. I think it was it 44? I think it was. I can't remember quite clearly, but let's just say it is 44. Probably isn't 44. I forget what number it is, but let's just say it's 44, right? Because I forget now. But say you did swamp at 44, then you also get credit for doing it at 2. So essentially you get 2 daily achievements. You get the achievement for novice and you get the achievement for adept. So this means that if you do the highest fractal for that specific island, you can get the former 3 achievements for initiate, adept, and expert, and then the master fractal that you just completed as well. Which I think is really cool because those people who do the higher fractals will basically get quadruple the reward and quadruple the achievement for the dailies by also completing the initiate, adept, and expert automatically because you've done the hardest one. I think it's a really cool way of doing it, and that's essentially how they've revamped the daily fractal system. By if you do the higher tier, you get credit for the lower tier as well. They've also adjusted and created new instabilities and fixed some of the instabilities. This is something we knew it was coming. It was definitely expected to come in this patch because some of the instabilities were pretty frustrating. I remember I was in Fractals one time and some guy joined the party. He was like, "You guys are playing to finish this with this instability? It's going to be pretty hard." And he left and we basically had to wait till someone else came. And it did take a pretty long time. So they've actually changed a few of the instabilities that were pretty annoying. And they've also introduced some new ones and basically improved a lot of them as well. And one of the bigger changes for fractals is the cliffside fractal. Now, if you don't know what this is the one where you have to go up the structure, the big mountain, and hit the seals with the hammer, and then at the very top you have to fight the Arc Diviner. And that's always been one of the longer fractals. I personally never liked that one too much because it always took so long. And they basically addressed that, and they've completely eliminated the first boss fight where you have to fight the Arc Diviner boss because there's no, they said there's no point in fighting him twice. So instead of having to fight the boss in the beginning, you're going to be fighting some other enemies. It's going to be like a kill event. And then they've also changed the amount of times you need to use the hammer on the seals. They've added a little blinking icon on top of a person's head if they're grabbing the hammer, and whenever it starts blinking, it means that they're starting to get corrupted. And some people who don't know how to use the hammer will slowly learn how to use the hammer through this new little icon and understanding how it's supposed to be used. They've improved basically everything in that fractal. They've added some shortcuts to the maps. They've made it easier to go on top of the mountain, on top of the different structures. They've added ways to disable the wind traps and the explosive bombs. The entire fractal of Cliffside is just a lot better now, and it's easier to get through because I do know a lot of newcomers have trouble with that specific fractal. And if you saw in the teaser trailer, the Cliffside boss did have a new skin and he was using new abilities. Well, this is because they've changed the way the boss works essentially. Now, the way this boss has always worked is that the higher you go in fractal level, the more health he gets and the harder he hits, basically. That's all that was basically happening. Well, they've basically reduced the health of this boss dramatically for all the scales, but they've added new mechanics to it. They've added new ways of fighting this boss. They gave him new abilities for each different difficulty. They've added new mechanics to each difficulty, and they've just made it a lot more engaging rather than just increasing the health and basically having us just fight longer. So I think that's pretty good. This is also one of the first of many more to come fractal boss improvements, so we can definitely see a lot more of these coming in the future. But I'm glad they started with Cliffside because that was a pretty annoying one, and I personally never liked that fractal too much, mainly because it was so hard for newer players, and you always had some noobs who fell off the structures and you have to wait for them because you don't want to leave them behind. You don't want to be an ass. And you know, now you can actually disable traps for them and all this cool stuff. I think it's a really great change. It makes it a lot more rewarding. It makes it a lot more fun. So that's pretty much it for Fractals. Next thing I want to go over is the Legendary Shortbow. They obviously added that, and what I read about it, it's a really cool story of finding a pair of legendary tigers. I didn't read into it too much because Legendary Shortbow never really interested me. I don't really use Legendary Shortbow, but I'm very curious about the journey that they have for this. I mean, they made it sound pretty cool in the patch notes of how you're going to find these pair of legendary tigers and, you know, how you progress through the journey. It sounded really cool. I'm really curious about it. And As we know, this may be the last legendary weapon they put out. Who knows? They said it's suspended indefinitely, so maybe they'll work on new legendaries in the future. No one knows, but that's basically that. They've also added a new level 80 boost to all Heart of Thorns owners and to people who buy Heart of Thorns. Now, this is something very new. It's basically a consumable, and it allows players to boost a character up to level 80. Now, what this means is you can only pick one character to boost to 80. However, what they've done is they've added a trial mode to this. So you can try this boost out on any character you want, any profession, and you'll basically be teleported to the Silver Waste. And in the Silver Waste, you have access to all the level 80 abilities. They give you a level 80 gear set, and they basically get you ready to try the profession out, try the skills out, and just get used to it and see if you like it. If you don't like the character, you can revert the changes and take the boost off, give it to a new character, keep trying it out on different professions, and until you find the profession you like, you can apply the boost permanently to that character, and you'll basically keep the gear, you'll keep the level, you'll keep the extra rewards they give you, and yeah, that's basically it. It's basically a free boost to 80. Now, why they're doing this? Because for new people that buy Heart of Thorns, they kind of want to allow them to experience the Heart of Thorns content immediately. It can take quite a long time to get to 80 if you're new to the game specifically. So they've added 80 boost to get people into Heart of Thorns quickly for one character, and obviously they're giving a trial mode because new players won't know really how each profession works. So I think it makes sense to have a trial mode. Now, what happens to those of us who are already level 80? Can we still use this boost? Yes, we can. In fact, if you're level 80 already, you can still apply the permanent boost and you get rewards. I think some of the rewards include like some type of leather bags, I think it's 15 slot or 18 slot leather bags, I can't remember. And they also give you some other stuff. It's nothing amazing or great. They give you some dyes, they give you some bags. It's nothing crazy or nothing new. It's useful. It's useful stuff. It's useful. So I mean, it's not too terrible. It's pretty good. So if you have all maxed 80s already, just pick a character you want to use it on, and you'll basically get all the rewards still that a regular person who gets boosted will get the rewards too. So it's not like it's a waste. You still get the rewards. So that's pretty much everything for PvE. Everything for fractals, dungeons, achievements. LFG is next in my notes here, and as expected, we were all predicting they were gonna add raids to LFG, and well, they did, but they've also added a lot more things to LFG. You can now have LFG for more than 5 players in a group, and this is specifically for squads. Squads can now be in LFG, something a lot of people have wanted for a long time. You can now merge squads in LFG. They now have more categories in LFG, lots more categories in LFG. They have like roleplay categories, dungeon categories, achievement categories, story categories, Over the Road, obviously, PvP, fractals, everything that you could possibly think of or would want to have in LFG is pretty much there, and they said they're open to suggestions to add more to the LFG to suit to players' needs. So if you think of something that they haven't added, you can definitely suggest it, I think, and they'll look into probably implementing it and adding it. But I think this is really cool. They've really improved the LFG system, and I like it. It's really cool. There's a lot of additions to the LFG, a lot of improvements as well, and I think it's definitely something that is quality of life there. With that said, they also have added, for raids specifically, a new raids lobby. Now, if you ever done raids, you went to Verdant Brink, you'll notice that there's tons of people there, and it tends to be overcrowded and take a lot of map space. So what they've done is added a new area in Lion's Arch, the Aerodrome, which basically is a lobby for the raid wings. Now, there's a lot more to this than just a basic old lobby where you wait around and look for party members. There's a lot of things in this aerodrome. They have a trading post there, they have a bank there, they have a repair anvil there, but there's a lot of different services in that area. And not only that, but one of the coolest things they've added is a special forces DPS training center sort of thing. And basically it allows you to have a lot of control and customization of seeing how much damage you do, toggling on certain boons and toggling off certain boons, resetting cooldowns. You have so much control in this little area here just to see what your DPS is and see how much damage you're doing. This is something people have wanted for ages now, and they finally added it to the aerodrome in Lion's Arch, and I think it fits perfectly with the raid lobby and all the services that are there. I think it's really cool and definitely worth to check out, even if you just want to see how your DPS is and see how much damage you're doing. I think this this obviously won't replace certain damage meters, because you'll still, I mean, Jackson X, I've heard that damage meter, which I've used in one of my Elementalist builds, I've heard that it's a bit inaccurate, so I'm guessing this is a lot more accurate, clearly because the developers made it. But I think we're still not going to be able to see how much damage we're doing in actual live fights. So that's pretty much everything we have for raids. Let's go ahead and move on to PvP, because there were quite a lot of changes for PvP. And as we expected, they were going to be improving a lot of the current maps. And, well, guess what? They basically did that, just like we had predicted. A lot of the existing PvP maps have been improved, specifically Spirit Watch and Skyhammer. Now, Spirit Watch and Skyhammer, if you've noticed, they've never really been very popular in the rotation. I mean, you'll see them once in a while in unranked play, but in ranked play, you literally never see them. And this is because the devs have always thought that these were never really ranked ready. Well, they've kind of made some changes to it, especially to Spirit Watch and to Skyhammer. For Spirit Watch, they basically made the orb in the middle spawn a lot less, so the focus is still on capturing points. But they've made the capturing of the orb and bringing it to a node worth a lot more points. So the orb mechanic is still there, however, it just spawns a lot less and it gives a lot more points. So it's still important to not overlook the orb, but it's also not, you know, the prime focus of the game. Nodes should still be the prime focus of the game. And they've also fixed some advantages that certain classes have had, because I know certain classes have had an easier time carrying the orb than other classes have had, and they've addressed that as well. So hopefully we'll see that rank ready. And Skyhammer has also been sort of fixed and addressed. Skyhammer was always one of these maps where they wanted to have the ability to throw people off the map, sort of. But a lot of classes really had more CC than other classes. So if you had a really heavy CC team, just by chance, you'd basically have a higher chance of winning because you can knock them off the map. So the way they've solved this is by having a border around the entire map now, and you basically can't be thrown off. They've also closed off some of the destroyable ground areas where you would fall through. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I really like that mechanic. I really like that you could push people off and how the ground would sort of disappear and you would fall through. I found that fun. However, I can understand where they're coming from, that teams with more CC will definitely have an easier time and have an advantage. So in order for it to be ranked ready, I guess you sort of have to standardize it so no one has a clear advantage. However, I feel like that's something that you should take into consideration when you're going into ranked. I mean, if you see that your team doesn't have enough CC, maybe you should switch to a heavy CC character when you're playing ranked. I don't know. I like the fact that you could still throw people off. However, the bright side is that Skyhammer, which is the big cannon where you could shoot, it's in the middle of the map. You can still CC people off of that, and they'll pretty much take heavy damage or die even. I know you probably, I remember you always died. I've always died when falling off of there. So you'll still die from there. So I'm glad to see there's still some of that CC throwing people off and letting them die. There's still some of that gameplay in it, but obviously not around the whole map anymore. They've also changed some jump pads where there's not as many jump pads anymore, only in some crucial areas. And they've made Skyhammer now an event, sort of. It only spawns every few minutes and you can have control of it only for a certain amount of time, which I think is also a pretty good change, because either people would completely ignore Skyhammer and just play the map nodes, or one team would always have the Skyhammer and have a huge advantage. So they've now basically made it an event where it's more sort of a secondary focus and people can have control over for a certain amount of time. So I think that's a good change, and it's healthy for ranked play. Apart from that, they've pretty much made the maps more competitive. Full Fire has been improved as well. One of the biggest problems with Full Fire, the map, was that Lord Rushing was pretty hard to defend, and a lot of people seem to like Lord rushing to get tons of points. So the way they've addressed that is now Lords have to be stomped, which is improved. People have a lot better of a chance to defend the Lord now, and it's a little more risky to kill the Lord. I saw some people solo the Lord even where they kill like each little mob and then they kill the Lord. Well, now they've also addressed that you can't really solo insta kill the Lord anymore. So that's been addressed. You have to stomp the Lord. That's been addressed. And then in Forest of Niflhel, they've also changed the times that these mini bosses spawn, like the Chieftain and the other one, I forget the name of it. But essentially, whenever you would load into the map, you always had some people run to the mini boss and kill that and then run to the nodes, right? And sometimes you'd have some guys say, okay, don't worry about the mini boss, we're just gonna focus on nodes, and then we'll focus on the mini bosses. And some people always had like a different idea. They wanted to do mini bosses, they wanted to nodes, they wanted to nodes, they wanted to mini bosses. So now they've changed that, and they basically have different spawn times again. Instead of spawning the mini bosses in the first 10 seconds, it's gonna be like a minute in. So the primary focus is still capturing the nodes and not killing the mini bosses. So all in all, PvP maps have gotten an improvement, so they're a bit more competitive. They've also added 2 new amulets to PvP, the Destroyer Amulet and the Demolisher Amulet, which has really opened up some more build diversity, which is what they're trying to focus on, which I appreciate. I appreciate the new amulets and the stat diversity. It's pretty good to have in PvP. And lastly, for Stronghold, they've also made some changes. I think this is a pretty crucial change here. Mist Champions. Whenever you're playing Stronghold, you always have a certain time in the game where you can capture a point and channel a Mist Champion. Well, now, however many times you channel this Mist Champion will determine how strong that Mist Champion is, how much health it has, how much power it has. And essentially, if you have captured this Mist and summon the Mist Champion 3 times, on the 3rd summon, you'll basically have a 150% health boost, and it's just a lot more effective compared to someone who's only, gotten the Mist Champion 1 time. The first time, it's only a plus 50% health boost, so it makes it a lot more rewarding to capture the Mist Essence and get the Mist Champions consecutively each subsequent time to sort of boost that Mist Champion up. So that's a pretty interesting change they made there. I think that's going to improve a Stronghold a little bit and bring focus on Mist Essences a bit more as well. And then they've also made spectator mode a lot more spectator-ish, I guess. They've removed some of the extra UI there. They made some improvements on that. And one of the most important things that I forgot to mention is they've deleted, well, they've basically taken out the loading screens. Whenever you die and you respawn, how does the loading screen? They've taken those out. I've always been curious, why is there a loading screen there? Like, when I respawn, why is there a loading screen? And they've taken those out. No more loading screens. I think that's a great change. So that's pretty much all for PvP. Let's go ahead and move on to Scribing, because that's the next thing in my notes here. And essentially, pretty much everything that I said last video about the spring update is kind of what they've done here. They've increased the drop rates of some of the cores that are required for Scribing. They've made more resonating silvers available. They've made those more accessible to get, and they've made those easier to acquire. They've also changed some requirements for the recipes, have decreased the requirements needed and the materials needed for recipes, and they've made assembly times lower. They've reduced assembly times, and that's pretty much the gist of Scribing there. Hopefully that will make Scribing a little cheaper, and a lot of people will scribe more. And the last thing I want to go over is some general stuff in War vs. World, because War vs. World, we have some big changes here. And what they've introduced is world linking. So essentially what's going to happen is that basically from now on, worlds are going to be linked with another world. So you know how some servers always had like not a very high population playing War vs. World, and it kind of sucked because you wanted to play War vs. World, but no one was on your server who played it? Well, now they've basically tried to balance the populations with different servers by linking up different servers and trying to balance populations so that population shifts aren't that big of a problem anymore. I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see. Note that some of these matchups, some of these linkings, some of these linkings are not permanent. Some weeks servers may be linked up with different servers and maybe switched around. Some weeks might be the same, so don't rely on that too much. But I think that's a pretty cool way of fixing their problem. That's something that a lot of people have speculated about and have wanted to happen anyway. And apart from that, something that really surprised me was War vs. World reward tracks. This was really surprising to me. I did not expect this to happen, but it works very similar to the PvP reward tracks. You can now earn a triumphant armor set, which looks pretty cool. And essentially, you know how in PvP you get experience towards your reward track after every match? Well, in War vs. World, you get experience towards your reward track after every 15-minute clock tick. So after 15 minutes at the very top, you usually see a timer. Whenever that ticks to the next 15 minutes to 0, you basically get experience towards your reward track, and it essentially works the same way PvP reward tracks works, only that some of the items that you receive are obviously War vs. World focused a bit more rather than PvP or PvE focused, so those changes are obvious there. And something else they've implemented is rewarding scouts and defenders. A lot of times in War vs. World, you know, some people are scouts and some people defend forts, and a lot of people don't like that because it seems kind of boring and it seems like you're not getting much action, you're not getting rewarded very much. And usually on very organized servers, you have people send scouts and defenders some gold for their efforts. But now they've also implemented a system where participation is important. Usually if you're in the Zerg and you're participating in killing people or in capturing certain keeps or in capturing towers and camps, you get experience towards your reward track through that. You get participation experience, right? But if you happen to be a scout or a defender, you can now gain participation based off of your squad and how well they're doing. So even if you're not killing people, even if you're not, you know, capturing things, even if you're just scouting or defending, you can still get rewarded and still gain experience off of War vs. World by doing that specific task and getting rewarded still that way, which I think is a great change because scouts and defenders have never really been rewarded that much. Another thing that I've added is a new ability line called Provisions Master, and a lot of people have been excited about this because World vs. World auto loot. That's awesome. It's been requested for quite some time. Ever since auto loot for PvE came out, they've wanted that. And now with this new ability line, the Provisions Master allows you to not only get auto loot, but also gain more badges from kills and gain more honor, more badges of honor from kills. You're also able to buy blueprints for the sieges anywhere in the World vs. World map. And each level of Provisions Master you earn will basically give you new stats, and will give you, well, not new stats, but new mechanics to play with and new perks to use. So that's pretty cool. If you play War vs. World a lot, you have a new ability line there, which can be very helpful. Desert Borderlands, we knew that they were going to be changing some things, and they basically just made some navigation improvements. A lot of the keeps have some new changes. I'm not going to go over them because, I mean, it'll take a while, but you can definitely read the patch notes on specifically what's changed in the keeps. But essentially, they've made fighting spaces a little more relevant, where you have better spaces to fight, improved navigation, like I've said already, and generally just basic general improvements to the maps. Like I said, more details on that if you want to go ahead and read the patch notes in that War vs. World section. And we're getting towards my last page of notes here. And one of the most surprising things in this patch, which I think is really big and crucial, especially to people who are new to the game, or if you're trying to boost your characters, is that World vs. World no longer gives experience. No more PvE experience. You know how you used to be able to grind your character in War vs. World, and if you're like a below 80, if you're an up level, you're there for the experience just to get to 80 quickly for the karma train and whatnot. Well, now there's no more experience gained towards PvE in War vs. World, which is crazy to me. Like, I didn't think they were gonna do that. However, on the bright side, they are rewarding Tomes of Knowledges through chests and through the reward track. So you still have a way of leveling through War vs. World, obviously, just like you have a way of leveling through PvP still. But this time it's going to be through Tomes of Knowledges rather than through experience gained, which should be only War vs. World experience, but somehow it still gave you experience for PvE. So they've changed that as well. There's also a lot of different skill balances for different professions and different classes. Once again, if you want details on that, you can go ahead and read in the patch notes. That's a bit too much to go over, but different classes have had different skill balance adjustments. I read something about stability has been changed and certain other aspects of the gameplay, so if you want to check that out, you can. Another huge thing they've changed now is that reviving people, you can only have 5 people now. If you're in World vs. World, you can only have 5 people revive one person. And one of the more surprising things is that you have to be out of combat. If you're in combat, you cannot revive the person. So you better be out of combat if you want to revive someone, and only 5 people can do it. I'm curious to see how this will affect the fights in World vs. World, because this seems pretty drastic to me. It seems pretty huge. I mean, I remember when I was playing World vs. World, I saw people, crowd around everyone trying to revive everybody in the middle of combat, and it was crazy. But now this has been changed, and it's going to be interesting to see how this affects gameplay and how this affects strategies and attacking. I guess it's a change for the better. We'll see how it affects War vs. World. I'm definitely going to be playing War vs. World a lot more with all these changes and all these incentives to play it a bit more. So we'll see. And from here on, we just have some general things I want to go over. Still some pretty important stuff. So for one, they've added a effect LOD option in the options of the game, and it basically reduces the visual noise and the visual effects of everyone else's abilities, and it basically puts a bit more focus on your abilities. It's by default, it's on, so when you log into the game, you'll have it set to on. If it's never really bothered you, I mean, I think I'm going to turn mine off, because I've never really been bothered by other people's visual effects. So I don't know, I'm going to see how different it is, but that's one of the things they've added that's new. They've also added new profession-specific ground targets, which look really cool. One of my friends told me that his looks pretty awesome on the Necro, and I've seen the Elementalist. It looks pretty cool as well. I think it's a nice change. It's a nice little luxury change, I guess. I like it. They have also added updated visuals to combo fields. Like if you're doing a water field now or a fire field, they've added updated visuals to that to basically show that you've completed the field, which I think is pretty cool as well. Once again, it visually rewards players that they've actually done something, and not just kind of like with sigils. Like with sigils and runes, they still need to do that. They need to make these sigils and runes visually awarding, so people can actually see they're doing something with them. I think that still needs to be addressed. Hopefully they address that soon. I'm glad they've made it. They've addressed it through fields and through basically combos. Lots of other specific profession skill changes. Like I said, it's a lot to go over, so I'm not gonna go over anything. However, they did make a change to Elementalist. For those of you who are Elementalist mains like me, Fireball has been brought back to its natural size. They've shrinked Fireball quite a while ago for some strange reason, but they brought it back to its normal size, and funnily enough, they've given it a 17% damage boost. Like, I think that's crazy. I think it's gonna affect some builds, because the Tempest basically, the fire overload replaced the fireball auto attack, because overload did more damage than the regular fire auto attack. So I'm curious to see if fireball does more damage than the overload now. I haven't looked into it too much, but it's a boost, it's a buff to fireball, so I'm not complaining. I just think it's kind of strange why I did it. So there's that. And they've also added quantity buying from vendors. How many times have we wanted to buy, especially with the crab grabbing gloves? Like, you guys know the gold trick that I went over about, I'm buying the gloves and then going to the Mystic Forge and putting them in and then salvaging them to get linen and then selling the linen on a trading post. Well, now we can actually buy quantity from vendors, which is awesome. A lot of people wanted this. It's a great change. And something else that was quite surprising to me is that they've added tips and little bits of information on loading screens now. Now, we've always wanted to have some type of lore on loading screens. They may give us some lore and some story about the area, maybe about the zone. But instead of that, they've added tips and information on loading screens, which I think is a cool little perk they've added. It looks cool. I like it. They've also made some guild hall changes, nothing too drastic. They made some minor changes. You can now consume all transmutation charges. Just a lot of small item changes and some guild hall changes. I'm not going to go over anything because nothing is too drastic there. If you want to go over it specifically, I'd go into patch notes, Control F, type in guild halls, and you'll probably be brought to the guild hall section. Same with the items section. They've also released new spectral weapon skins and a new sentinel outfit, so if you guys want to check that out, that's in the gem store right now. Black Lion claim tickets have also, well, scraps, Black Lion claim ticket scraps have also got an increase in drop rate. So if you've been opening Black Lion chests, you may get some more of those. Looking through my notes, I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything for the patch. We made it through the video. I don't know how long this is, but hopefully not too long. Hopefully you enjoyed the video though. Hopefully you found it informative. And those are all the cool, important little bits that I found in the past that I thought were pretty important and that I thought were pretty cool and worth talking about. So, like I said, tomorrow we're going to go over everything that happened on Reddit and everything that people asked and all the questions and answers we got from developers, because can't squish it into this video, obviously. Yeah, if you have any questions, any suggestions, If you want to talk about some of these updates, what do you guys think about the update? I was pretty surprised by this update. You know, the way Guild Wars 2 has been getting all this hate from people, you know, I've hated the negativity, but I think this patch was pretty solid. It's really made a lot of people happy. It's really changed their opinions about the game. And I think it's a very solid patch. I think it's a great patch. It addresses a lot of the problems. And it really shows that the developers are putting a lot of effort into trying to make this game as best as they can and listening to the community. I think it's awesome. It's really good to see that you know, they're fixing the game, which, you know, once again can be argued shouldn't this have been done earlier. I don't know, but I'm just glad they're doing something. That's how I look at it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. We have plenty of other Guild Wars 2 content on the channel, plenty more to come as well. We always have these little talks where we just talk about some of the news, so if you like that kind of stuff, definitely subscribe. And we also have certain Guild Wars 2 guides on here and talk a lot of Guild Wars 2 stuff. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Like I said, let's talk about all this in the comments section if you guys want. I'll definitely be down there answering as usual, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I hope that this video helped you out in any way. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out. If you didn't like it, you can leave a comment below as well and give some feedback. If you have any other comments or questions, please leave them in the comments as well. And I usually try my best to answer those comments within the next 24 to 48 hours, depending on how busy I am. I also have plenty of other content on my channel about different gaming tutorials, as well as general gaming videos for Guild Wars 2, League of Legends, Minecraft, and any others that you may be interested in. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, check it out. And if you like what you see, you can subscribe too. Would really appreciate it. You can also check out my other channels and social medias as shown on the screen right now. And with that, thank you so much, everyone. And this is GSmaniamsmart, and I'll be back sooner than you think. Don't go anywhere.